Hi there, welcome Nim fam to our Gameweek24 Q&A stream. I hope you guys are well. Today I'm joined by FPL royalty Rich Clarke, who boasts 8 top 10k finishes, is the current world number 3 ranked on the Premier Fantasy Tools ranked, and has not been outside the top 50k in 17 seasons. Rich, 17 seasons! But most of all, today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, and we've been chatting for some time now, so it means a lot to me. Welcome to the stream, Rich. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks, Nim. Thanks for having me on. It's really great to be here. I'm fine. Better than I was Sunday evening, but yeah, I've taken a few days to let the variants sink in, and I'm fine. Yeah, looking forward to tonight's game.
Yep.
And talking to the community. So I haven't done one of these Q&As for a while. Yeah, looking forward to what we got thrown at us. So thanks for having me
Yeah.
on.
And I've just given you the good news that Erling Haaland has travelled with the City squad this evening, and you're triple captaining at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's great news for you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, just getting some appearance points feels like something. So
Yeah.
yeah, it didn't look like he was gonna even make it tonight. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he will play. I hope he'll play.
Yeah. I'm kind
Anything.
of in two minds as an Arsenal fan, obviously. Part of me
Yeah,
wants him to, but because he's my captain. But yes, and you're triple captain. I want him to do well for you. But yes, obviously for Arsenal's sake, it would have been nice if he decided to have the evening off.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Right, well, let's move on to some of these questions then. And we've had a few on Twitter already. And the first one was from FPL Axie. And he says, for FPL managers with just one transfer in their kitty, it's arguably the easiest game week to navigate, isn't it? There is no decision to make other than roll a transfer to have 2 free transfers in game week, double game week to 25. What's the merit in getting a future doubler now and risk a potential injury or unavailability? So what are we thinking, Rich? Would we do it this week? Would we go for a doubler now?
I think he's answered his own question with his question, hasn't he? Really? I mean, I think it's very sensible to roll a transfer this week for the reasons he's just outlined. I mean, obviously, a player that you're hanging on to could get injured, so that would change the player you were potentially transferring out next week. There's a week's more information to learn on how Liverpool are going, how Everton are going, etc., etc. And yeah, taking 2 transfers into next week definitely seems the most sensible move. I think it will be one of the lowest game weeks for net transfers or actual transfers made of the season, just because it lends itself um, to the doubles. And I think we'll get into a bit of a rhythm of this happening every other week now, because we're going to have another opportunity to roll a transfer in 26 before another double in 27, and then we'll have a blank in 28. So we're going to just have these periods where we make 2 or 3 transfers for each double, and
Yeah.
then either use a chip or save the following week when there's a normal game week or a blank. So yeah, transfers I think are probably at their most valuable that they've been, because it's going to get harder to navigate from now on as we
Yeah.
get into the silly season. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I completely agree with you there. I would roll this week and worry about the double ahead of the double. Definitely. That I don't think there's any point in, unless you know you really want that player, particularly for that, like for this game week, so they get you a good fixture this game week and the double, and it's selling maybe somebody who's injured that you know won't be in it, then that's the only time I'd really advocate
Yeah.
it. But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there could be teams out there that are so decimated with blanking players for next week that they've got to be moved on
Yeah.
anyway. So you could use a free transfer to get one of those players out this week, but you're still running the risk that that player that you're getting in, either blanks or might not be available next week. So yeah, 90% of teams roll it, unless there's a glaring reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, do get your questions in the chat if there's anything you want to ask us. Or if you want to post your team, you can go on over to @FPLNim on Twitter and post your team like these guys have done already. So that's really cool. Okay, we have AAK, FPL Rick's Taker. And he says, with Salah certain to be part of my team for double game week 25, I know we've discussed this a little bit already, Rich, in place of KDB, does it make sense to have him this game week 24 on free transfer, considering that KDB has been A, disappointing, and B, Pep benched him against Nottingham Forest earlier in the season? P.S. I know it's impossible to predict Pep Roulette. Well, that's very kind of him to know that that we can't predict Pep, because that is just impossible, isn't it, at the moment? Now, man, seriously, he has he's definitely made life difficult for us FPL managers. So what are we thinking? We've just said we wouldn't use the transfer. I'm assuming we're both in agreement that we would leave Salah another week here.
I think so. Well, I'm so certain I'll leave it a week that I don't even know who Liverpool have got this weekend. Who have they actually playing? Newcastle, is it? It's a tough fixture, haven't they?
2 seconds.
Yeah, it's Newcastle.
Newcastle. Yeah,
Newcastle away is not an easy fixture. You'd probably fancy current form Newcastle to, probably win that game or at least draw that game. I think it's definitely worth leaving it a week. Again, if there's extreme circumstances, there could be a price change. But most people are going to go into next week with 2 transfers, so that gives you the flexibility to generate the money you need to make the transfer. I think one of the reasons that I favoured bringing in KDB over Mahrez last week was that it makes the move to Salah much easier in game week 25. Now, with hindsight, would have been much better to have brought Mahrez in, wouldn't it? But there'll be a lot of us that are sitting on KDB. It's only 0.2 difference. Salah dropped, I think, Sunday night or Monday night, down to 12.6. So you just need to generate or have 0.2 to make that upgrade from KDB. So I think that's a reasonably affordable for most managers next week, even if there is a bit of price fluctuation, both those guys. So yeah, I'm comfortable to make it. I thought, I don't know what you thought, but I thought Liverpool improved on Monday. I thought they were much more attacking. I thought they were played with a much faster tempo. And it looks like having some Liverpool attacking cover is definitely the way to go. But not if your team's not set up and it's difficult to get Salah in. I think there are other options. Do you?
Yeah, well, I am in that sticky wicket myself, if I'm honest. It's not the money. I have like 5 million something in the bank. It's more who I sell in order to get Salah in. So at the moment I have Mahrez, Odegaard, Saka and Rashford. And whilst Rashford looks the easy sell for a blank, he is in such good form at the moment. I think, it's quite a tough sell unless you're going to go straight back to him. And then you have to consider what you've made on him and what you're willing to lose on him, which, isn't quite as easy as it first looks. So another week's worth of information for myself is definitely going to be worth it. Tonight will hopefully help a little bit for myself, and then hopefully game week 24 will also help. I'm kind of hoping it becomes a bit more obvious after game week 24 if there's anyone I could sell on for Salah. I mean, if my team is still performing and Mahrez isn't getting dropped, or at least not seemingly going to be getting dropped, then I'm going to have to look at other ways potentially to bring Liverpool in. So, and that's looking mostly like Darwin. Do I think he can cover Salah? That's the difficult question. The other way I could think about it might be maybe to downgrade Kane and push Andreas up to a Salah, which I could do. But
5 million, you could,
Yeah, I could. But I'm then going to be, again, considering potentially what to do with some of my other players then going forward. It's like, do I want Kane back, etc. Although, Thank you, James. Welcome to the Nim fam. Thank you for subscribing. So that'll be interesting as well to see how Spurs get on the weekend, because they lost last weekend, they lost last night, both of which Kane played. So if they lose again on the weekend, potentially Kane could become a bit of a cash cow. He could even go down. Maybe is it Brentford that double there too, or are they a bit later on? I was wondering.
27.
Yeah. So
I mean, Kane is
maybe
it hasn't had a question on him, but Kane is now on the departure lounge a little bit because Spurs are just decimated with injuries and issues, and just generally not playing very well.
Mm-hmm.
So unless he can continue to prop the team up on his own, essentially he's not the sort of season keeper we thought he might have been a few weeks ago. So
it's Lloris, isn't it? It's that injury. I think it's really messed around with the structure of the team. Now everyone feels like they need to help the goalkeeper out a little bit by defending, and therefore that ultimately makes it really quite difficult for Spurs to be quite attacking, which obviously is what Kane needs. So
I think it's Bentancur being out for the season.
Oh yes, Bentancur as well.
So he's a problem. If you look at the fact that last night, I think Skip and Sarr as their central midfielders, Champions League play, so they really are down to their sort of their support squad members that make up the side at the moment. I think they've got to start playing with Richarlison and so on. I mean, I'm not a Spurs expert, but I think that, they are looking weak, and therefore, if you can't get to Salah and you don't want to sell any of those fantastic midfielders you just listed in your side, then definitely going down to a Darwin is
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, if it could get me to Salah as well, then happy days. So because I think then you could bounce along from Darwin to a Tony, for instance, for his double. So there's definitely potential there. I didn't think I know both of us have discussed this though. We definitely weren't a Kane out a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of other people were jumping off of him. So I didn't think I'd be anywhere near that anytime soon, but it's looking kind of likely. But just to go back to the original question, we're saying we'd stick another week and wait on Salah for next week, I think. And
straightforward switch,
yeah.
Because the other good thing is, well, obviously, although De Bruyne and City have a game in game week 25, they're going to be smack in the middle of their Champions League fixture transition, and so therefore players could be rested either side of that Champions League game against Leipzig. So coming off a City player in 25 seems reasonable. Plus, Liverpool may still get a fixture in 28, which is the blank game week, depending on how the Fulham versus Leeds FA Cup game goes. So all of these factors we've got to start thinking about when we bring in players, not just for the immediate double, but will they get fixtures in the blank game weeks? Do they make your team better equipped to tackle that upcoming blank, or neutral, or worse? You have to consider, each of those things, even with Liverpool transfers. So Liverpool, you load up on Liverpool next week, you might get lucky and have 3 guys or 2 or 3 guys who've got a fixture in 28. But that game in the FA Cup, I'm going off a slight tangent, but that game Fulham versus Leeds is becoming a really, really important game for FPL managers to plan around. I'm not even sure it's on TV, but it's certainly the one to watch in that 5th round.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, then we'll move on to Marcus's question. And he says he has 1 free transfer, 1.7 million in the bank. What would you do? Currently thinking on rolling. Would you start Aki or Gabriel? So can you see this, Rich, or shall I read out his team for you?
Yeah, I can. I can see it. Yeah.
Cool.
I had a look at this. Earlier. I think I'd start Gabriel over Ake, just again because I just mentioned about the City rotation. I think given this weekend, Pep will want to make sure he's taking a strong team double game week. So into the Champions League match next. So I think Ake might get a rest, particularly if he plays tonight. So I'd play Gabriel just for the certainty of the starts. But I would roll that transfer. He's got his slightly different kits on his Arsenal players, isn't it? They're
Yeah,
wearing
it
dark
goes
shirts.
away kits.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the team looks pretty decent. I mean he's got to hold most of those players. Again, the Fulham guys you've got to sit on because you don't know the outcome of that cup match.
Hmm.
Everybody else looks absolutely fine on there, don't you think? I mean, I think
Yeah,
they look fine.
I do.
Wilson is possibly sell
Mm.
because he blanks next week. But again, I don't see any issues with just keeping him on the bench there. Which defender to play? Then yeah, go Gabriel. Go as you've got it set up there. Fine to roll with that.
Yeah. I think tonight might help with the Aki situation. I have him. If he starts tonight, then be a little more inclined maybe to play him over Gabriel. This is somebody who is an Arsenal fan and got off of White this week, so it may help your decision a little bit tonight. If Arsenal were somehow to keep a clean sheet against City, then that'd obviously give you more confidence to play Gabriel. If Aki starts, you may decide, that you want to take a bit of a punt on him potentially starting, leave Gabriel first on your bench. The problem with Pep is he almost always brings his defenders on for a minute or two at the end, doesn't he?
That's the reason I just went for Gabriel, because if you are going to go for a clean sheet, then you don't want that
That's a
1
good
point
point.
cameo. But I think City defenders are probably a hold, but not buy, aren't they,
Yeah.
at the moment?
Mm-hmm.
They're not a disaster. The trouble is that Diaz and Laporte, the old veterans, are starting to make a bit of a comeback, and I wouldn't be surprised if both of them played tonight, actually. And they put
Yeah.
Aki on the left, but we're all second guessing that defence, and the more candidates there are out there, the less attractive they become. They're not a settled back four like Arsenal have, are they? So it's much easier to buy into those defences. We know they're going to play, particularly blank game week. I wouldn't buy City defenders now, but you've got to go with what you have.
I would expect some rotation from Arsenal, though, soon. Arteta did allude to it this week, that he was going to change things up, and White has been particularly weak, so I think he might be at risk. I think Nketiah could be at risk, which is not great, seeing as I have him in my team. Possibly even just a straight swap Martinelli to Trossard, and he may go Tomiyasu and go with Trossard for the start, but I don't think that'll be tonight. I do think it could be coming though in the coming weeks, and that Villa game might be the game that he might try it. But you know what, Villa look tasty against City, and they can score a goal. Watkins can be a bit of a pain, so just kind of bear that in mind. It's not an easy decision, definitely. The Gabriel versus Aki. So hopefully tonight I'll give him a bit more information. So FPL Neil is a regular. He's a member. He says, "Hi both. Rolling this week is my plan, but looking to Gameweek 25 and being already tripled on Arsenal, Liverpool in my plans, but who are the best options?" So Salah is obvious choice, but not adverse to distributing my funds across all positions instead, like Jota, Robbo, and the current team is below. So do we like the idea of going all in on Salah, using all our money on one player, or would we prefer to spread it out and hope that we get some returns across the board?
Okay. Now I've seen several drafts this week from community members, who are anticipating taking 2 transfers into next week, and if as we've mentioned, you want to sell Harry Kane, go down to Darwin, which is going to give you the funds to upgrade De Bruyne to Salah and then bring in someone like Trent or Robertson at the back. You can go for the Liverpool triple up for a -4 and go really, really strong in the double. And I think that's what, your members alluding to there. It could be worth going, say, Salah, Trent, Darwin for a -4. And then hoping that maybe you get that game week 28 fixture after the Fulham Leeds Cup match, and then you're well set. If it goes the other way, it might force you into considering using a chip that week in 28 or changing your chip strategy completely and bringing it forward. That's the kind of impact that going too all in on one side can have at this stage. So you want to play it with caution and keep your options open. I think maybe getting one Liverpool defender or one other doubler next week might be the more balanced play. But certainly if you think Liverpool have turned the corner and you want to catch that upward curve, then up to 3 Liverpool is very viable in the double. And also if you're quite a long way down the rankings and you're looking to make something happen, then these are the weeks you're going to have to start making an impact. It depends on where you are and what your aims for the season are. If you want to play cautiously and safely and maintain rank, it's possibly not as important to start taking hits and risking everything. But if you really want to get differentials, like Trent at the moment, his ownership is really low,
do you feel he was robbed of that assist the other night?
I think that's the worst decision. I mean, maybe Lee Mason has changed jobs and has become the FPL assist adjudicator or something. I mean, I think that's shocking. I thought there was an assist the other week that was chalked off for Saka when he crossed from the right hand side, and I think it was an own goal. It kept winning off the keeper. And it was awarded, and then it was taken away in the match. I mean, I think the Trent one is worse. I think I have every sympathy if you own Trent. That just looked a totally legit assist. It just brushed, I think, Mikalenko as it went across the goal. I mean, it did touch the defender, but if it's going to start getting like that, and every assist has to be completely clean, we could be into. Well, we've got another VAR situation on our hands. Well, exactly. We've got someone sort of taking it into the VAR domain now looking for reasons to disallow an assist rather than award it based on the intent of the pass. And I think that was clearly intended to reach Gakpo, wasn't it? And it got there, and he scored. I mean, it's totally legit. I don't think we'll have too many on the call to agree with it.
Yeah. But yes, on Neil's question, I'm with you there, and I think having the information again to see Liverpool this week, see how they do against Newcastle. I mean, if they manage to beat Newcastle, then I think, because they're a much tougher team, I guess you could say, than Everton have been of late. If they manage to win there, then I think it looks a little nicer to go maybe, more than just one player.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably got choices. If you're sort of in our teams are slightly different. If you're maybe in the difficult to get to Salah and maybe don't have that 5 million in the bank and can't jump up from a 7 or 8 million asset easily to Salah, you could do a Kane down to Darwin and use that extra 3 million to upgrade, say, a Shaw to a Trent, and then you've got 2 Liverpool assets with attacking potential, but you don't have Salah, and you balanced it out so you kept the rest of the field to move forward. So there's lots of different ways you can go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Roberto Hollis says, my question is to roll or move Mitro to Felix. So he has Mitrovic, who is against Brighton, so quite a difficult defence, and he is looking to move to Felix.
So. Yeah, I've got Mitrovic. He's been a bit of a difficult own, Mitrovic. I do empathise there. And also, he seems to be robbing me of points. Every time I buy him, he's gone up by about 3.3 or 0.4. And as soon as I buy him, his value starts tumbling. So I think I've owned him, jumped on him about
costing
2 or 3 times this season. He's just costing me loads. And he's had that 115 pointer. And then it's all just been bad news from there, really. So the problem with owning Mitrovic is he has fixtures. He has a nice fixture next week in Gameweek 25. I think Fulham play Southampton, is it? I think. And then he has a fixture in Gameweek 28 if Fulham beat Leeds again in that pivotal FA Cup match. So they're the home team, probably slightly more likely to win that game. We'll have again a fixture in Gameweek 28. So we could find that we've got other fish to fry, and that Mitrovic becomes a hold all the way through till 28. That's a long way, isn't it? 6 more weeks of holding on to Mitrovic just so he gets a fixture. So the temptation to move him up to a João Felix, who is definitely on the watch list, is a reasonable play, because Chelsea also have fixtures in 25 and 28, and then 28 they're guaranteed to have a fixture. So I don't think it's a bad move. Although you could argue that Chelsea still haven't hit their stride. They're still not banging in 4 or 5 goals every week. In fact, they're most likely is a 0. Most likely not to score. But I think Felix, if you're going to get a Chelsea attacker, I think he's the one to go for. So if you're losing patience with Mitro, I'm going to just see what happens in that Fulham FA Cup tie, because for my team, I'm still thinking I can navigate through 28, be it tricky to do. I'd rather keep my chips till later in the season. I'm just going to wait for those round 5 cup matches. Itching.
I think, it's a tough one, because Mitro is looking pretty. Felix looking pretty good at the moment. So I think this is a lesson maybe to be learned from somebody like yourself. Maybe not to be quite so reactive on players. So it's quite interesting to get that bit of information that you would hold, Mitrovic despite,
Yeah, I think so. And also, this could go a number of ways. Just looking slightly beyond this week and even game week 25. Keep coming back to this FA Cup game. In some ways, if it goes, let's say you load up on Liverpool, to our previous question, and that cup match ends up giving Liverpool a fixture in game week 28. That's going to make life a lot easier in terms of the number of game week 28 players that fantasy managers have. But if the Fulham game is off, it makes those Fulham players much easier to sell. So you've got Ivan Toney coming up, who's got a double game week in game week 27. You've got Brighton, who've got a double game week in game week 27. So Evan Ferguson becomes candidate. So you've got 2 candidates waiting in the wings who we're going to want in our sides come game week 27. So you're going to want a player you want to lose and want to get rid of. So Mitrovic suddenly becomes very useful in terms of a player to swap for those 2 guys. He's also in the same price bracket as Ivan Toney, so it's relatively easy to achieve. So I'll just say each week that goes by, that lens is going to move slightly, and the players that you want to bring in are going to change. So just that Mitrovic still has a use, even just to hold him while we get that extra information.
Yeah, so that kind of lends itself a little bit to our question from FPL Whoops, which is a great name. I can do Mitrovic to Felix, but that would price me out of De Bruyne to Salah for game week 25. We'll probably roll, but what's your view on Mitrovic long term?
I would just wait. I just would, again, be patient. Mitrovic still has I think, a reasonable this week score, and I guarantee that it does. So just hold and have 2. And then powerful move.
Agreed. And as we were saying, there's a little bit to discuss, I guess, on whether you'd consider captaining Salah, so you'd potentially want him in your team for that game week 25, and if getting Felix is going to price you out of that, then it's not for me right away. So with that, we will move on to your team, Rich. We do have a few questions in the chat, which we will get around to. So if you guys want to put a few more in, you can do. And I've got your team up here on the screen, Rich. And I think this is probably a good time where we can chat about some of the stuff that we've wanted to have a little kind of chinwag about. So hang on, this is my team. Where's your team? This is my team, everybody. You all know that from my team selection video anyway. But this should be, there we go. There you go, there's Rich's team. So Rich is on the triple captain, not doing too badly at the moment. Rich, points wise,
Overall,
even
yes.
without the the madness of more returns from Haaland, doing okay this week. Points wise, what is it? 41.
Oh, 41. Yeah, though it's not been great. It's not been a great week this week. Desperate for some triple captain returns tonight if Haaland plays. So hopefully, when there's another game, there's always hope, isn't there?
Yes,
so,
there's always hope.
Yeah, hopefully
it's the hope that kills you in FPL.
It is, and hopefully I can pull back some of those points this evening. And I think I was started the week at about 6k or just over 6k, and so fallen out of the top 10k with the variance. I've been in the top 10k since about the beginning of November, so it is a long time in terms of elapsed. But we obviously had the World Cup in between, and it feels like you've got to smash it every week in order just to tread water, at that level. Unless you have a really good game week, you get a red arrow. So hard to stay there, and I have just been playing that kind of survival FPL within the top 10k, but you do need things to go your way. So when you're on the wrong side of a bit of variance, it's going to have a big impact. But team is okay. I managed to get rid of Bruno this week with a mind on reducing the amount of Manchester United exposure, and now I'm just managing that. The Newcastle and the United players in my side through next week. So held on to Shaw. Didn't get his points this week, and made the decision to play Botman over him. That's clearly backfired a little bit.
It has, but you would do that all day long again.
Yeah, I think it was a logical decision. I think we've got different types of variance here, haven't we? We've got decision-led variance where you think, okay, I've made the decision to play Botman over Shaw. Cost me a 12-pointer, but that's your decision as a fantasy manager. You've made that decision, and you have to accept it when it doesn't go your way. When you get different situations like Haaland and Mahrez penalties, and and then going off injured at half time, and you just get that kind of slap in the face. That's a different, that's more of a kind of event driven variance, isn't it? You can't control it. It's just a random, I don't know,
event,
life unfolding in front of you that you can't have any influence over. So, but then when it all stacks up, that can lead to huge swings in points, and it's the swings in points, I think, that in the moment, are that challenge to handle emotionally. I felt pretty sick actually about sort of 6 o'clock on Sunday. It really did affect me, and I needed to just sort of switch off for a few hours and get away from social media and get away from everything, because it just as a learner, you can't always escape that variance, and you won't always be on the right side of it. You have to deal with it. So I'm not just coming on here and moaning about it.
Vent away.
I'm just trying to sort of articulate what I went through, as an emotionally invested FPL player.
Yeah.
And it was my turn to have a bad moment on that variance side. I hope it doesn't happen every week, but it will happen normally at least once or twice a season to us. People will have to deal with it ongoing.
Well, I got a bit lucky, if I'm completely honest with you. So the only reason Shaw is in my team this week is because I sold Ben White. Otherwise, he would have been playing. Now, obviously, we can't fully analyse that until tonight's game is over. But on the face of it, it looks to have been an okay call at the moment. But I am with you, the variance can be big, and I think the biggest thing about this season is that we all still feel, it all still feels quite tightly packed, and we all still feel kind of quite squidgy to each other. So it feels like when you have a bad game week, it's a really bad game week, right? And then when you have a good game week, you don't really go anywhere. It just feels like you're just kind of like I'm on a decent amount of points this week, but I'm still -1 off of a green arrow. So it's a tough season. A lot of managers are more engaged. A lot more information is available. It's making the game more difficult, I believe, because it's trying to choose your moments to be different and go with the crowd, or try something different to try and get ahead of the crowd. I guess it did that a little bit with Mahrez. I didn't feel so lucky last game week, not the game week that we're in now, but the game week before, when he went off for his 1-pointer and swapped with KDB. But this game week it's come good. So it was a bit of an out there pick, and I had the funds for KDB, but I fancied trying something different. But that variance could all change even just tonight. If KDB manages to get some returns, he's far more highly owned than Mahrez is. That will hurt me quite a lot. And the same if Arsenal were to keep a clean sheet, that would hurt also, because Gabriel is still really highly owned. I think he's still 30-something% owned. So, and that's, I know we all see White in the community, but Gabriel is actually, the most highest owned out of the Arsenal defenders. So I am with you. I suffered this variance a couple of seasons ago when I didn't have Aguero, and Aguero happens to be one of my favourite players, and he smashed in that hat-trick. And I can genuinely tell you, it took me days to get over it. Because I thought about getting him in and I didn't do it, and all I did was beat myself up over over not doing it. So there's something to be said about it. Yeah, go on.
This does seem to be the season, and when you step out of the herd and you go it alone. I felt like a bit like this with the triple captain on the Rashford decision from the previous week. I know we were chatting about it, but and to some other content creators as well, and most of them who hadn't used it on Haaland 1.0 used it on Rashford last week.
Yeah,
I held on to it, and I feel like a little bit of an island this week as you look at like the content creators.
Yeah.
Little me with my little triple captainship out there, and but there's been many instances earlier this season where people have gone different. Gone for a different captain, or they've gone for a different setup, or they've tried to do something different to climb the ranks, and they've been absolutely slapped. Generally, they if you've stayed with the herd and you've gone with the herd pick, you've run along quite nicely. When you try and do something different to everybody to make those rank gains, make those things, hasn't worked. Hasn't been that real sort of go out on a limb and smash it type moment. Maybe it's just too risky.
Yeah.
and just sticking with the regular chip. As we get into the chip season, you play the wild card when everyone else plays the wild card. Play the free hit when everyone else plays. That might be better strategy than saying, "Well, I know what's good for my team. I'll play it when I want to. I'll keep my chips right till the end, or I'll go early." Like they always say, play your own game, but actually, more risky.
It is more risky now. It is when when there's a very template team and everyone is doing that. But I think for yourself, you really have to look at how well you're doing this season. So you're at 6k, right, where you only just using your triple captain chip this week, so that's brilliant for a start. I know you hold yourself to high esteem, so there's a lot of pressure on yourself. Like, I put a lot of pressure on myself because I know really to become I don't want to say good content creator because that's not the right words, but I guess more well known in the community, it will take for me to have a couple of really good seasons in the spotlight. So I put a lot of pressure on myself for that reason. I know you put a lot of pressure on yourself because you want to continue doing well and keeping up the records. that you have. The triple captainship this week, I don't think it's a bad call at all. And I think it's really gutting what happens on the weekend. But the good thing about it is that you have another evening, right? He's travelled, so we know the likelihood is we are hoping he starts.
He's going to play. No. I mean, I'm like I say, I'm over it already. You know,
Yeah.
It took 2 days, but I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I'm looking forward to tonight's game. You know,
Yeah.
Whatever it will be, just because of the actual fact that the two teams have not met yet this season. So I'm just going to enjoy it as a football match. And you know, actually, we know we've all got half a dozen players in the game, so it will be what it will be. I'm personally hoping it's a 3-3 draw or something. It'll be a great match to watch, because you need these big matchups to be good games. You know, like you know, I didn't stay up for the Super Bowl, but that turned out to be a fantastic match. It was worth staying up for. You want the big games to be great games as well, don't you? You don't want a 0-0 just because it suits your fantasy team, or you know, Haaland not to score. I don't like wishing for players not to score that I don't own. That's the thing. Just fundamentally enjoy the football. So I'm looking forward to tonight's game. Yeah, of course I'd love some returns, but actually, if I get a couple of appearance points, say let's move on. You know.
Yeah. Completely agree. I did try with the Super Bowl. I will admit I had a little snooze here and there, but I did see the important bits, which is good. But yeah, I too am hoping that there are lots of goals. Somehow I'm praying that Arsenal manage to come out on top, but I'm feeling more nervous, I have to admit, with us currently than what I did just a few weeks ago. I think we needed that win at Everton to go into Brentford and be a bit more positive. And then with the horrible decision going against us with the Brentford situation, it does worry me that confidence will be difficult tonight, which is probably great for triple captain Haaland.
Well, see. I mean, it's a big game, isn't it? I think certainly if City win that game, then they'll take over as favourites. But Arsenal should focus. If they win their game, win that game, they'll have a massive lead. The overwhelming favourites. So yeah, good. Well, hope for your sake it goes well.
Yeah, thank you. Although I say that, and maybe being underdogs might suit us better, but we can definitely see how it goes. One thing I did want to kind of have a chat with you about just before we do move on to the last few questions in the chat, and that is your thoughts on FOMO, because I know this is something that I've talked about with you a lot, and it's something that I do suffer from a lot, and I happen to base my transfers quite often on this fear of missing out on certain players. So I took a -8 this week because I was scared of missing out on Odegaard and Saka.
Yeah.
I know it's something you're a lot more chilled upon. So I wanted to get your kind of perspective on the fear of missing out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I see. I coach quite a lot of players through my hub affiliation, and I come across this quite a lot. People worrying about not owning a certain player, or wanting to own more players than they have positions for in the team. I mean, you just had that. There's this old cliche, you can't have everyone. Can't own everyone, and actually, as long as the structure of your team is set up for the upcoming 3 or 4 game weeks, and you have the main players that you want for those upcoming game weeks, just not owning 1 or 2 players for the immediate game week ahead, because it's difficult to get to them. It's certainly not worth taking hits to ditch perfectly good players to bring other perfectly good players in. So you can try and cover all the bases. You can never cover all the bases. You have to back your team and your selections to get you through the bulk of the game. So because we've had so many, we've had the extra wild card, if you like, after the World Cup. We've all had a reset. just 6 weeks ago. So that's why most people's teams are pretty similar, because they were set up for the Christmas fixtures and the immediate fixtures that we're now going through, doubles things. So it's I just would I say to people, just don't worry about owning those extra players. I would always not take the hit, go with the player I want the most. If I've got that sort of Odegaard versus Saka decision, and I would just choose the one I want the most and get him, rather than take a -4 and get them both, and maybe throw someone out who also had a good fixture. I know I'm simplifying it, but I'm just saying you can get the other guy the next week. Really still want him, and as it turned out, I mean, Odegaard didn't do anything, hasn't done anything yet. Might be a player that I think about selling now.
That variance we were talking about, Rich.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I might get rid of him to get Mitoma in or something in a few weeks, because I just won't have any spots in my team that I want to move off. So I mean, people are starting to talk about selling Rashford because he's got a blank. I mean, he's arguably the form player in the Premier League, and he's only gone up 0.6 or something since we came back game. But I think it's madness to absolutely madness to sell him just because he's got a blank. You've got to keep him, because you're going to want him back when Manchester United have double game weeks, and it's going to cost you 0.6 more and extra transfers, those valuable transfers, but to get him out and bring him back in again. So I just think that on FOMO, you just need to make sure that your team is well balanced and you have the majority of the players that are form covered, but just you don't have to sort out the team that week. All of it. Real basic advice. Again, it comes down to just having a bit more patience, being okay with game weeks flow.
And that is it does, and that's proved by your patience with, say, a Mitrovic. So I think that's really sound advice, because especially at the moment with all these double game weeks to come, I'm sure there will come a moment again next game week or the game week after where it's going to feel like the Odegaard and Saka situation all over again. I want Salah, Trent and Darwin, but I can't get to them easily, and it's been tough this season because a lot of hits have paid off for big creators, and you've seen that happen. Whereas you have seen some patience being punished, so it's tough not to chase the doubles this season, and it's really, I think it's made me quite confused which way to be, because I definitely started the season more Rich like for sure, but as the game weeks have gone on, I've reverted back to my batshizle ways.
I think we're getting to this point now. I'm going to do a pod with the Green Arrow guys tomorrow, but I think my section on it, I'm going to call it the calm before the storm, because this week is just a logical save week. It's banker transfer time. Go with the players you have, then have 2 in the bank. But we are going to get into silly season. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to get those cup matches, which are going to take place around the end of the month, 27th, 28th of February. After that, you and I and other content creators are going to start coming out with how does the game week 28 picture look like? What does this mean for game week 32 potentially? We're stretching off into the distance, with hypotheses for the next 8 to 10 weeks, and someone out there will come up with a narrative that suits their team that says, if I take a -20 in game week 26, I can get this player, that player, him, her, everybody in here, and I'll generate 27 extra fixtures over this period for my side. Therefore, those hits are free. Therefore, I'm going to confidently go out there and take that -20. So you should too. And there'll be all this
the old -2 for each hit vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Follow that scenario, and people will jump on that and go, God, yes, look at the extra fixtures I could get here. And it happened last year, and it largely, to your point, paid off for a number of people. There was that. It was. I think it started with the week that everyone was triple captioning Salah, and he got 84 points. And normally you'd think that's absolutely fantastic, but there was an opposite position that people took up where they wildcarded. Do you remember? And they had to wildcard overnight on the Friday night, and then just go for a massive chip spending session over the following 5 weeks. And as it the stagger unwound, if you like, then it became fairly evident that those that had gone for the bolder strategy did very well. So I think we're getting to that point again, and it sort of blindsided me a little bit last year. I think I went out on the Friday, and therefore I couldn't spend the evening looking at my whole team. And it just came down to that. It's like, do I want to do a rushed midnight wildcard? Well, no, I don't. I want to think about my wildcard in a period where I've got more time to analyse it and put into it, not do something because the Premier League have dropped a load of double game weeks in at a moment's notice at 6:30 on a Friday, which could happen again. They could do it again. There could be more fixtures coming, but this time we might get a bit more notice. But there will be those content creators out there that come up with these scenarios that could. You might need to jump on. So, Praz, if you're out there, I'm calling you out. Love it. It's coming, Nim, and it's how we handle it that counts.
Definitely. Okay, cool. We do have a couple of more questions in the chat, which I'd like to kind of wrap up with. So I'll just pull this up for now, just in case we get any more coming in. But I got
a few that were replied to me when I retweeted your invite. I had someone say, what about Leicester? They said Leicester are now showing some form. They've scored 4 goals in each of their last 2 weeks. So what do we think about their options, specifically Iheanacho, Maddison, and Barnes? So I've read that out. What do you think of Leicester?
Well, the chat will be happy to know that they actually, during the FPL Late Show that I do on a Thursdays here with the ladies, the chat get to choose a 1% differential, under 10% differential, and they chose Iheanacho, so they'll be very happy after last week for sure. Do I think he's worth getting in our FPL teams? That is a good question. Leicester do look on the upturn, don't they? But I think with other teams having all these doubles and blanks and stuff, it's quite difficult to look at single game week players, isn't it, Rich? Because I guess it's kind of the whole Felix situation all over again. It's considering, a single over a potential double game week player further down the line. Or was it 2 game weeks in a row now? I think he could be a good replacement for somebody if you want somebody to fill the gaps between the double game weeks, but somebody easy to bench when the double game weeks come. So in my instance, for yourself, you have Mitrovic that you can do that with. But for myself at the moment, I have Nketiah, Kane, and Haaland. So it's much tougher to drop Nketiah and until Arteta starts doing that. So he's definitely a player that you could consider to get in for that third striker spot and play in the in-between sections. But also, I don't believe they blank, right? So, that he'd be good to go on those game weeks as well. I mean, he looks good.
It does look good. They might blank 28, but I think we are obviously going to become quite, as you said, double focused, obsessed over the next X game weeks in terms of like diverting all our transfers to get rid of blanking players and bring in players with double fixtures, and that's clearly an upside strategy, but to the detriment of ignoring teams that are running into form and smashing in loads of goals. So Maddison looks like he's definitely recovered from all his injury trouble. He's clearly the sort of talisman player for Leicester. And Iheanacho is looking, like he's now number 1 choice for a striker spot, and he's hit a range of form. So I think Leicester, if you're using a chip and you want to bring in a Leicester players around, I wouldn't do it this week or next, because I think they've got tough fixtures. I think they've got United and Arsenal, is it? I think that, but yeah, they've got, after Gameweek 26, their fixtures are pretty decent. Leicester, I think, are definitely worth considering. I think I'd possibly go for Iheanacho just because it's easier, I think, to bring in a striker at the moment than it is on those midfield spots that we covet so much. So,
agreed.
so yeah, to answer the question, there, hope that's answered that one. The next one I've got was, can't remember his name, but he said, can you give me a cheap Anthony Martial replacement, less than 6.2 million, to enable Salah transfer next week? So I assume he needs that. It needs it to be less than 6.2 in order to afford Salah, or Salah as part of his move. So I was thinking about this, and there's not a lot out there below 6.2 million. I mean, I was thinking Nonto.
Nonto, yeah, he's probably my shout as well, to be honest. Yeah.
I mean,
you have to get on the lucky side of that coin again with the whole Leeds game, Leeds Fulham game, but still, he's gonna be okay for you to bench when you need him to, and he's playing and he looks great.
He's got a game in. He's got a game in 25. That's if the need to get rid of Martial is immediate, which I suspect it might be, because he's probably loaded up with blanking players. Then if it's got to be this week or next, then Nonto. But if you can afford to wait a little bit longer, then Evan Ferguson's probably another candidate at 4.6.
It's just whether Undie was
Brighton's
kind of taking his, because Ferguson was back last week, right? But he didn't actually
came on as a sub. He got 33 minutes, I think, but Undav played, I think, which is a bit of a surprise. But he's one to watch anyway.
Yeah,
and you have got a few weeks to watch. So, but
be interesting to see whether Ferguson starts the next one. So if you can hold off, that'd be good. Yeah.
And it's just that there are, below Nonto, there aren't that many playing strikers. So and then obviously we just mentioned Iheanacho, and I'm not even sure what his price is. Somewhere around 7 million.
I can tell you right now because I'm on the he is 6.1.
Oh, 6.1. Oh, well, there you go. Iheanacho. If he's only 6.1, there you go.
Yeah.
Below 6.2 million. I think I'd go for Iheanacho over Gnonto, because I think he's got the form.
Yeah.
Serve Leicester.
Yeah. I mean,
what a segue.
and you got Man United and Arsenal, which you'd happily bench. Although you might want to potentially play him against Arsenal at home, Gameweek 25, and then Southampton away, Gameweek 26, Chelsea 27, but Brentford away, Gameweek 28. So yeah, not bad shout for old Kelechi there. Cool. Okay then. So just a quick shout out to a couple of people in the chat. We've got the Yellow Army. We've got James, Paul. Welcome, guys. John. The Disabled Team. Michael Scott. Ray. Dizzy Dory. Hi everybody. Hope you're all good. We've got FPL winning, and he says Darwin, Salah, or Jota. Rich.
Oh, Salah probably, just because of the penalties and the CV that he's got. Yeah, if you can afford Salah, I think he'd be the first one I'd go to. But as we've covered earlier, if it's difficult to get to Salah, then Darwin may be an easier option. I wouldn't tear the team apart to get any of them, but you can move to either.
Yeah, Michael says, my defence is Shaw, Trippier, White, Botman and Patterson, so potentially only White plays in 25, thinking of switching Botman to Badiashile or Tarkowski this week, or still worth carrying the transfer?
I've got Botman, and I'll probably carry him through just for that 28 situation where Newcastle have a fixture. I mean, I do think Newcastle are just turning the corner the wrong way. The goals have dried up and the clean sheets have just dried up the last couple of games. So they're going to be focused on the EFL Cup final at the end of the month, because that's a massive game for Newcastle. Haven't won a trophy for 50 years. That's the biggest game they've City's had in modern era. So I think it could be okay to sell Botman. It depends. Just keep that, that meter on how many game week 28 players you have before you get rid of him, and see if you can hang on. But if you're carrying 3 United or Newcastle players through, then could carry Shaw through instead of him. I think he's a better player for arguably a better team. But I'll probably sell Shaw before I sell Botman, just because it will enable the funds for me.
Yeah.
To make another couple of moves.
Okay. Ray, this kind of answers a few people's questions, so we'll just go with this one to be the last one to wrap up. So he says, looking at double Gameweek 25, is Darwin enough for a free transfer, captaining Saka? Or is a -4 to bring in Salah instead worth it and would captain?
Well, that sounds to me like you might have already used your Game Week 24 transfer early. So again, what we said at the beginning of the program was roll your transfer this week if you've still got it and have to. But if you've already used it, therefore you need to take a hit. I would say if you're going to captain Salah, I always think if you're going to take a hit to get a player in that you want to captain, it's probably worth it. But you've got to remember that Arsenal have got a double game week that week as well, and captaining one of their assets like Saka is perfectly alternative, arguably the better choice than going with the Liverpool fan. So if you're not going to captain Salah, I'd say don't take the hit. If you are, then I'd say the hit is okay.
Yeah, the other reason you could be taking it, I guess, might be to free up some funds to get Salah in.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hits in double game weeks are always, okay. Don't go. What's your word? Batches.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, thank you all so much for joining the stream, and thank you so much, Rich. Where can they find you on Twitter, Rich? Because they'll have all your links to where you stream and stuff there, won't they?
Yeah, I'm on at Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter.
Brilliant. Okay, and thank you for joining me. It's been lovely to finally get you on, and hopefully,
pleasure.
Hopefully, we'll get you back soon. And until next time, guys, Nymphrey are out.